As a child in school, I was overall a good student and fast.
No.
I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing that I lose track of everything else.
You want to circle that one for me?
I'm
I saw you laughing. I saw that.
Okay, well,
it's
just
true.
I generally don't like people who have different ideas from me.
True. No sense lying. You're right here. You'll squeal on me.
I usually do things my own way rather than giving in to the wishes of other people.
Circle true. Go ahead. True. Are you happy?
I am.
It's on TV now. It's fun for you, isn't it?
I didn't know it would be this much fun. Okay.
Attention deficit disorder.
It can be devastating.
Adult attention deficit disorder.
Without a proper diagnosis, ADD can ruin your life.
We know for sure this is a disorder that will hurt you if you don't look after it.
Okay, having said that, the tremendous good news is if you get the diagnosis and you get proper treatment, not only can you avoid all those disasters, you can achieve spectacular success.
We also know for sure that this disorder, when looked after, can make someone very functional.
I mean, you can be at the absolute pinnacle, not only in terms of success, but happiness, fulfillment, a rich and wonderful life.
This is a documentary that dares to suggest that ADD is not necessarily a total disaster.
Many of the children that I see not only grow into successful adults, they grow into people that I admire tremendously, that are kind, that raise families, and contribute something very significant to society.
I mean, recognized, acknowledged, and accepted, ADD can become an ally.
It's the key to it all is education, what you're doing right now.
I know. The majority of people who are ADD are not loving it, especially if it's running their life.
Moderate or severe ADHD that goes untreated leaves you really at a loss in life.
This is why, as clinicians, we think it's really important to detect ADHD early and treat ADHD early.
There's millions of parents and children who are suffering. As a former child and current adult and parent of ADD, trust me, I know. A lot of it was scolding of don't do that, settle down, stop bouncing, stop banging your head, stop rolling your head, settle down, sit on your hands, stop talking, behave, don't be a fool, and don't act foolish all the time. Why can't you read faster? Those are the formative years. But I'm discovering that everything I thought I knew about ADD is wrong. So whether you've heard that ADD submits you to a life of crime and suffering and possible cannibalism, maybe you've heard the complete opposite, that it's all bull roar made up by the drug companies. Whatever you heard, be prepared to be surprised, if you can pay attention long enough.
There are many myths about ADD, and I think maybe that's the scariest, is that there are so many.
The amount of misinformation is incredible. The experts aren't sure of a lot of things, and some widely accepted theories have been shot down.
We no longer believe that ADHD is an expression of unresolved conflicts, but a frank expression of some hardwiring differences.
What we no longer believe is that people outgrow it. It continues on into adulthood.
What I learned to do in graduate school to treat ADHD, I would now consider malpractice, which I know is a very strong statement, but it's one that I do make, and I make confidently.
Over the next hour, I'm going to shoot holes in what you know about attention deficit disorder, and I'm going to take aim at adult ADD. Oh, I'm Patrick McKenna, your host. And this is ADD and Loving It. I didn't say the title. Okay.
It's a bullcrap cop-out.
Smarten up, pull your bootstraps up, and get on with life.
If only you tried harder, you'd be able to pay attention.
What makes me really sad is when I read in the newspaper, when I open the TV, and I hear someone saying that ADHD is not a real disorder. We have so much data, so much research behind it to know that ADHD is a neurological disorder. And furthermore, it is a treatable disorder.
When Patrick agreed to do this, I felt as if we were about to reveal the Little Man and the Wizard of Oz and pull the curtain back. So to come out together and speak about something that is so intimate
And something that we've spent all these years trying to hide so nobody knew there was anything wrong. This is a very brave thing to stand up and say, I have this, and these are the demons that I fight with, and this is sometimes how difficult it is for me to get through a day.
Now, have I had to learn strategies to deal with the downside? Sure. But those are learnable. Whereas the upside is not buyable or teachable or procurable in any way.
Dr. Lynn Weiss, a groundbreaking pioneer, has worked with ADD patients for over 30 years, has created a list of 29 positive attributes that she's seen again and again. Attributes like sensitive, fun, inventive. You got a problem? We'll tell you about it. We're energetic and we're down to earth. You're looking for an ADD person. Look on earth. We don't harbor resentment. You can offend us and we'll forget.
Stand-up comic. She actually said stand-up.
Do you do stand-up?
Oh, right.
Okay, yeah.
We'll cut this part out. You know what we should do? We got so many questions and so much. Why don't we put it in Post-its and then we can be organized?
I love Post-its. I got Post-its everywhere.
Post-its. You get Post-its? Yeah.
You ever put a Post-it on your forehead when you're driving? And
Yeah,
people are trying to read it when you're driving all the time.
Here you go.
I'm sorry. Okay. Can we get bigger Post-its? Because this is sort of a post, but I need a Post-it.
Yeah, I could get one letter here. We need bigger.
Yeah.
Big-heartedness, generosity, all of those kind of qualities, charisma that are so commonly associated with children and adults with ADD, those can't be bought or taught.
Last question.
Okay. All right. Huh? Now we're organized. All right, let's get to the questions, starting with, we could start with this one. Exactly what is ADD?
Attention deficit disorder.
What's the difference between ADD and ADHD? H?
ADHD stands for Attention Deficit and Hyperactivity Disorder.
3 core symptoms: attention, impulse control, and motor hyperactivity.
What is the ratio of boys to girls with ADD?
If you look at the hyperactive, then it's mostly boys versus girls. But if you look at the inattentive symptoms, then it's almost the same ratio, boys to girls.
What other names did it go by?
Early on, it was called minimal brain dysfunction.
There was a category of FLK. Are you familiar with that? No. Funny-looking kids.
Who discovered it and when?
Symptoms of ADHD have been around for over a century.
Fidgety Phil was first described back in the 1800s.
Don't kids grow out of ADD?
The adult will be able to better control it. So when you look at it as an outsider, you say, it's not there anymore. But it is still there, but the way it is presenting itself is different.
Why did it take so long to recognize it?
When you get to be about 13 or 14 years old, you get self-conscious. You start looking at yourself, and you do something to try to cover up or hide the fact that you're different.
Why is there so much confusion?
This is a disorder that's been going around for hundreds of years. We've just not been able to peg it easily because the names keep changing or we don't describe it very well.
And we're probably in our toddlerhood with our understanding of this. I think we're maybe past our infancy, but we're not mature with our understanding of this.
Is there any resistance to the idea of adult ADD?
The people closest to you have watched this behavior over many years, and they've made up stories about what it is. They've made up stories about, you're ornery, or you're just not trying hard enough.
Does it run in families?
Yes.
Myself, I think I grew up with it, and I know that one of my sons is diagnosed with attention deficit.
Is it genetic?
Yes.
How much of it is genetic?
A greater percentage than even diabetes.
Do we know what gene or genes are involved?
The first gene that was described was called DR-D4.7. Well, since that time, back in the late 1990s, lots of genes have been described, typically of the dopamine type.
What do you think of the percentage of people that might have ADD?
7 out of 10?
Are you serious?
I would guess maybe 35%.
What percentage of the population is ADD?
If you look at a whole bunch of studies, we're somewhere in the 5 to 10% range. 10% is probably an overestimate.
1 in 25 adults having ADHD.
How prevalent is it?
It's everywhere. This is a worldwide phenomenon.
Do ADDers have a lot of learning disorders?
Yes.
Problems with spelling?
Oh, yes, very much.
Do they suffer more from diarrhea?
I was or had trouble reversing letters.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's very much.
Is it real?
It's take it to the bank real.
Does it affect self-esteem?
Yes.
Does my Aunt Marjorie have it?
No.
Can you get it from toilet seats? Is it caused by food additives?
Nope.
No.
Are ADD people crazy, lazy, doomed?
No.
People with ADD are working their hearts out just to get through the day.
It's not a virus, and it's not contagious.
Is it caused by allergies?
No.
Is it a sign of weak morals?
It's not a sign of weak morals.
Is ADD a sign of bad parenting?
No.
We've got to stop telling parents they've done something bad.
Is it recognized by the Canadian Medical Association?
Yes.
What about the American Medical Association?
Oh, yes. And the American Psychological Association, and the National Association of School Psychologists, and the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Is there one clear definitive symptom?
No.
One of the problems we have in child psychology and psychiatry is that no one symptom is the sole purview of ADHD.
Now, if there was only one gene, all these could be the same. It's not.
But there are things that they have in common.
One of the greatest things I ever heard was, you've seen one kid with ADHD, you've seen one kid with ADHD, as opposed to you've seen them all.
Can it be cured?
You're built this way. Your genes drive this.
Why the explosion in number of cases?
It overlaps a lot of different disorders in different ways.
So where were all these ADDers before?
We probably are misdiagnosing it as things like anxiety disorders, depression, personality disorders, people who have difficulties with bipolar or even high-functioning Asperger's syndromes, for example.
Why is the diagnosis so important? So you'll know you have it.
And also to make sure you can eliminate what you don't have. Right?
Right. Sorry, what?
Well, you know, it could be your thyroid, it could be any number of things. So,
Yeah.
okay, say you have a sore toe.
I don't, though.
No, but say you did have a sore toe.
I don't have one if you...
Okay,
That's one. That's
okay,
one.
so now
Oh,
you
my...
could have a sore toe because someone stomped on your foot or your shoe's too tight, you stepped on a nail, you got an ingrown toenail. Heck, you could have toe cancer.
I got toe cancer!
Maybe there's something wrong with your vision. Maybe your hearing is problematic.
It could be a mood disorder.
Maybe it's an anxiety disorder.
It could be a thyroid issue.
Because mom changed the fabric softener, and all of a sudden the kid was squirming in a seat, and somebody said, that kid must have ADHD. My gosh, you know, not everything walking in the door with motor restlessness is ADHD. Maybe the kid's underwear's too tight. How do you know?
Have I got polio?
So it's really important when you get a sense for ADHD that you see a clinician that knows what is ADHD and what it is not.
So you can't even manage or play to the strengths of your ADD if you don't know that you are ADD.
All of a sudden, a bunch of stuff fell into place for me. The main one was why I had not been able to do everything and on the one hand and could do other things that other people couldn't do on the other.
It's like they've tailored this whole entire survey and this whole entire questions and all the tests that they made me do to me.
What tests do doctors use?
We don't have a blood test. We don't have a brain test.
What tests do doctors use?
It's the CAARS self-report long version, the CADRA assessment form, the Brown ADD scales. This is the Winder, Utah rating scale, because in Utah they do things differently.
What do doctors look for?
A pattern of difficulties. And the three difficulties that are a concern are hyperactivity, impulsivity, and problems with attention.
Cannot complete tasks in an allotted time, needs extra time to finish satisfactorily. This is as an adult.
As an adult, like home projects or...
Cannot, oh, I see. Okay, you're gonna go there, are you?
A little bit.
Okay, then we say almost daily.
Okay.
Okay. Doesn't seem to be listening and gets complaints from others about it. I would say almost daily. Which, you think? You think that'd be fair to say?
I think that'd be fair.
That'd be fair,
That'd
at
be
least.
fair.
Yeah.
I have too little time to look for long-term solutions to my problems.
True. In conversation, I'm a much better listener than I am a talker.
You're an excellent talker, my darling. You're really, really good at it.
She believes in me. Frustrated and excessively impatient? Yeah, I'd say almost daily.
Almost daily, I think so.
I lose my temper more quickly than most people.
True. What was the question? All right.
As a child, acting without thinking and impulsive.
Maybe like riding a trike up to Wilco,
Maybe
stealing
like
a gun.
yeah, okay.
I'd say that's very much.
All
That's
right.
another duh.
I like to think about things for a long time before I make a decision.
You know, there's impulsivity
Yeah.
that says that's false.
Yeah.
But then the big purchases, no, it's still false. It's false.
I was gonna say, do you want an example?
I looked you in the eye and I couldn't even get through.
All righty.
The way medicine understands problems is that we look for patterns.
It has two components, one with the intention cluster of symptoms and one with the hyperactivity, impulsivity cluster of its symptoms.
If you have both, you're called the combined subtype of ADHD. But you only need to have 6 out of 9 here and 6 out of 9 here. You have to have it for at least 6 months. You have to have it in more than one setting, and the symptoms have to be impairing. We know that once you get over 6 over 9, it's quite likely that you're going to have a hard time.
Once you get a handle on it, all the negatives can be turned around and you can become phenomenally successful. So don't be afraid of getting the diagnosis. The only time to be afraid is when you don't know what's going on.
What are some common traits of adults with ADD?
The most common reason an adult comes to see me is that they're underachieving. Flashes of brilliance, but then periods of completely blowing it. And they don't understand it. For the life of them, they keep trying and trying and trying, but they get these inconsistent results. So unexplained underachievement, not only in work, but in relationships.
Well, I'll say, remember the time we were with Steve and Jenny and we met their puppy and no, I wasn't there. I just wasn't there. And then you pull out a photograph of Patrick, Steve, and Jenny and the puppy on the night of, and it's like, it's almost like magic to them.
Organizational skill problems, time management difficulties, missed appointments, less and less, frequently late, unfinished projects. Ooh, basements full. Yeah.
Yes, take a look at your desk, take a look at your basement.
If I had a garage, I could fill that with more too.
When you deal with adults, usually they don't lose things anymore. They lose time looking for their things.
Money management problems. If I had money, well, I did at some point, I'm sure. So yeah.
50% of it is gone anyway.
Yeah, exactly. Thank goodness.
I think there's people that we hire that take better care of our money.
Yeah. I think a bank robber would take better care of my money than I have.
Frustrated and excessively impatient? Yeah, I'd say almost daily.
Almost daily, I think so. I have the idea, I do it. I don't have the time to reflect on it.
When I'm driving, for instance, if there's a line, I'll go 25 minutes out of my way just to keep moving. I'm not getting in a lineup for anything.
Or if he's stuck in traffic, and this is no word of a lie, he gets so impatient and so distracted. He was stuck in traffic coming home from Toronto one time. The only place he could get off was this cutoff where there was a car dealership, and he bought a car.
Yeah.
Inability to linger over things.
The adult who's expending more energy than others to do the same amount of work. Geez, in some areas that's true, but in other things I'm faster than a lot of people.
But it certainly would be a flag, though, if someone says, I'm going to go out and mow the lawn, but first I just have to go to Canadian Tire and pick up some gas, and then I got to stop here and do that. I think, yeah. Oh, it's like Leonardo da Vinci, what, 5 years to paint the Sistine Chapel?
Yeah.
Could have been done on a weekend.
Sure,
just
with
focus.
a roller. They must have had rollers.
Yeah.
They had wheels.
He's always fidgeting, he's always squirming.
We've moved 15 times in our marriage.
They tend to be overactive, even in their sleep, by the way.
We moved 3 apartments in the same building. Just got tired of the apartment. There's one up on the 8th floor. Let's grab that.
Hyperactive talking.
Being over-talkative, interrupt frequently or inappropriate.
Well, one second. What do you mean by interrupt?
Well, I
Like
mean,
just when you
it's-
interrupt, when
no,
people
when
interject or interrupt?
No, if I'm talking, sometimes
More-
you'll talk over
That's a
someone because
flag.
you don't want them to get in.
Okay, that's a flag.
You kind of have a pressure to talk.
A lifelong history of difficulty with attention.
Sorry?
Yeah.
And when you grow up with ADHD, you kind of find ways to look like you are attentive, but you may not.
Inattentive and daydreamy.
Anger control problems? No, no.
I had an appointment at 9 o'clock in the morning because I had to be somewhere at 9:30, and I was going to buy a car in half an hour. I get there at 9 o'clock, and the salesman wasn't there because he was at a meeting, and I was waiting in the office. And about 10 after 9, I was losing patience, and I started freaking out. And suddenly this guy comes in, and I just tore a strip off him about being late and this, that, and the other thing, to the point where they had to call the police because I was just an irate customer. And you know, when it built, where I just couldn't contain, because of the anxiety that I was going to be late for work. I added all this on to that moment, and I blamed this guy for it, who was 15 minutes late, and I knew he was going to be late because they told me he was in a meeting.
It's hard to remember what you're like at 12 or 15, but my brother, you know, I was saying to my brother, I was you know, I was pretty calm in childhood. And he said, are you kidding me? All you ever talked about was there was going to be a nuclear war. And I was like, oh yeah, well, but I thought there was. So it was like, there was anxiety there I wasn't even aware of.
Usually I'm more worried than most people that something might go wrong in the future.
True. Don't circle it before I finish.
Sexual avoidance or addiction? Boy, there's choices.
I think I'm avoiding the addiction,
Yeah.
or I'm addicted to avoiding.
No, I stopped avoiding that addiction.
Addictions to video games, computer addictions, spending hours on attention-relieving tasks like chat groups. It also includes overwork, being so busy that you never have to stop and do a task that is quieting or soothing.
All those who are workaholics, raise their hand. Yeah.
Rates of pathological gambling in untreated adults with ADHD are higher.
Overeating? God, no. We're skinny as...
Yeah, the
that's
camera
why-
adds 40 pounds.
And this is like a 5-camera shoot, so there's
So,
200 pounds there.
right there.
Everything is sort of chaotic and, you know, possibly, you know, they've been married more than once.
Marital problems. Well, I'm on my second marriage, so that counts.
I'm on my first, it's 25 years, so I give grace to her, not
Yeah.
me.
And you had a couple of good years in there, didn't you?
Oh boy, the
was-
third one was a smoker.
Yeah.
When I was in my teens and early 20s, I built 2 very successful businesses and then managed to kill them.
Problems with driving. Okay, I've had 5 car accidents in my life, and none of them have been going faster than 5 miles an hour.
It's sort of like having a Ferrari engine for a brain. But there is one problem. You have Model T brakes.
I forgot to mention that time I took off to the mall by myself when I was 3.
Yes, over a mile.
Oh, easily over
On
a
your
mile.
tricycle,
Yeah.
crossed a 4-lane street, went into,
Wilco.
stole a gun,
Stole a gun.
and got back on your tricycle, and rode home.
Rode home.
And who was waiting for you?
The police.
Yes, that's right.
But I finished the task.
You did.
How can adults find out if they are ADD?
I think when somebody walks into the office, they don't know what to expect. And the single biggest complaint for many of the patients that I see is that someone has had them fill out a checklist. The checklist showed that they had these symptoms or those symptoms, and therefore they received a diagnosis of ADHD. A good assessment for ADHD includes finding out why the patient's there, the history of how they came to be there, the family psychiatric history, the medical history, most important, the developmental history, because ADHD, when it's present, puts a stamp on each stage of development. So you may see colic in infancy. You may see a preschooler who was expelled from preschool, or you may see a child who couldn't do homework in grade 3 or was kicked off the football team for misbehavior.
You must include a sense of a narrative over time that makes sense to you.
The bottom line really is the person that goes through this process with you is your doctor. Your doctor needs to be able to understand those clinical symptoms, find the settings where it's impairing, get information that tells this individual, tells the physician that there's something wrong. I might be looking at your parents to get information from. I may be looking at the school. I may be looking at circumstances in your life, so you tell me what's going on with you. But the most important thing really is that it takes time to gather all this information. And it's not easy. People have to be trained, and it's better if, in fact, the families are part of the partnership. Did anybody ever make a comment about how you handled the birth of your siblings?
The questions he asked were so pointed that it brought out specifics in my past. So it was enlightening to me to see the patterns being presented to me.
So the process of assessment pulls all that information together.
And typically, I need to talk to somebody from your past. Now, the ideal person is your mom. Now, all moms by now whitewash everything from childhood. It's kind of like, you know, he was a good boy. What's the problem? Everything was fine. But just like I went through with you, part of the intent really is to get those stories from childhood. If those stories match your stories, well, that's significant. And there may be other stories back there that might be even more relevant. If I didn't have your mom or was not accessible, then I'd be asking from your spouse, who usually talks to moms. or anyone else that I necessarily could get a story of your child, maybe your elder brother, for example. That might be a story. So, getting information from somebody else, learning more about you, and those questionnaires become the 3 parts to this diagnosis.
I view people who are non-ADD as, I envy them to a degree. I envy the fact that there's a calm in their life that I don't know. Now you may be thinking, I lose my keys, I must be ADD. Hey, wait, not necessarily. You know, as we traveled around North America interviewing all these experts, every one of our crew members ultimately thought, hey, I think I'm ADD.
A lot of people who don't have ADHD look like they have ADHD because they want to do so much in so many shorter period of time.
It's no wonder the skeptics dismiss it, huh? I mean, that's why self-diagnosis is so dangerous. Because being ADD is not about being occasionally overwhelmed or occasionally confused. This is ongoing.
It shouldn't be attention deficit. It's an attention modulation deficit. So someone who has ADHD can focus, but not always at the right time or for enough time or on the right task.
And as authors Kate Kelly and Peggy Raimondo point out, there's 4 aspects to focusing. And the first being, what the heck to focus on?
I go to answer an email, and then I realize, well, I better just enter these receipts before I forget. So I'll enter the receipts and do that. And then it's like, you know what? I just need to anti-stress here for a minute. I'm just going to play a quick game of solitaire, and I'll do that. And then, okay, 1 round of that. And then it's like, oh my goodness, the guitar's sitting there. I just want to play a song before this thing happens because I want to remember those chords. I got a show in a month. I might want to remember that. Put that aside for a while. Then it's like, oh, photos are sliding off my and then I'll come out to Janice and I'll go, I didn't even answer the email.
The second aspect of focusing is focus itself, staying on task.
Okay, so this is the screening replacement kit, right? Replace the screen. So
we have to replace our screens all the time because the dog keeps running through them.
You get a spline, which is
I put one of those little doors on, but the dog doesn't seem to recognize the door. It goes right through the screen.
And then there's
habits. Habits are often
utility knife.
I have a utility knife.
Okay,
yeah.
so
it's more of a blade than a knife. I don't know why they call it a knife. There's nothing sharp about it other than the blade. It should be a utility blade, really.
So you lay this on the flat surface. Then you're going to use a screwdriver to pry up the spline.
See,
you discard the old screen and the spline.
We don't even know.
Which is included in the kit.
See, a lot of people think this is what ADD is.
Installation tool.
It's just a part of it staying on
utility
task.
Knife.
And the third element of focusing is monitoring focusing. So you're not focusing on any one object too long, or what they call hyper-focusing, because that's detrimental when you...
I took my licensing exam for psychology. I think we had 4.5 hours to take it. I took 1 break. My friend took it. She took 4 or 5 breaks.
So if you watch a television set, which is very stimulating, and my brain gets all the stimulation it needs, my filter does this, and I can focus.
If I really care about something, I can focus on it in ways that nobody I know can.
And it's just not under their voluntary control.
Pat, everybody's waiting. They're starting to close the store. Pat, this is the 4th aspect that people with ADD have trouble with, and that's the aspect of shifting focus. For ADD people, it can be really painful to go from one thing to
and not being able to
another. Not always,
very easily.
You don't want to get off whatever it is you're doing. You feel that, God, it's so much effort to get here. Please don't make me do that again.
What's it like being ADD?
There's a feeling when you have unmedicated ADD that I don't feel good. I don't feel enough. There's something out there.
When you're raising children, when you're thinking of, I'll do that tomorrow, next week, I'll make sure that I spend more time with him and do things like that. But you pass over that moment because you're thinking beyond that moment of work now and getting what next. And so you miss a lot of opportunities in life.
You're stuck on channel surfing mode, and you don't have the remote control.
Someone else was zapping the channels.
The person who mentored me in coaching said, she says, just once I'd like to drive my brain instead of the other way around.
The cartoon, The Roadrunner, you know, he's just zipping along all the time, and then he stops, but not for very long, and then he's zipping, zipping, zipping. So I feel like that's the ADD brain. So it's always on to the next thing.
You can't distinguish, you know, foreground and background in terms of sound. So a crowded restaurant could be, it'd drive you crazy. It's like fingernails on a blackboard.
Why do ADDers like chaos?
It wakes up your brain. If I just juice things up here and create a little drama, I feel wide awake.
In a world that's 9/11 and it's all collapsing around you, you are the calmest person around. But in a world of calmness, You're in crisis. I wouldn't even get you to balance my checkbook, for God's sake.
Is it true ADDers tend to be risk takers?
Okay, somebody start. Anybody.
It goes along with some of the impulsive symptoms and the difficulty delaying an impulse. And some of that relates to the areas of the brain that are specifically affected by those two neurochemicals, norepinephrine and dopamine.
You're essentially self-medicating with adrenaline in a panic. And adrenaline is very similar, by the way, to stimulant medication.
I think that's the thrill that I get of being on stage and being in front of a camera and doing the plays and theater and stuff, is that all senses are alive.
Self-medicate often with drugs or alcohol, or with activities like gambling and sex and shopping and spending.
ADHD individuals haven't got a clue where the end of the cliff is. If they don't know where the edge of that cliff is, they fall off regularly, and that's called impairment. But where you stand at the edge, you see things that nobody else sees, then people call you successful. All of a sudden, what you see makes a difference. I mean, let's be clear. Mediocrity does not change the world. People who live the life far away from the edge of the cliff, who don't take chances, don't do things that change the world. People who change the world are people who take chances.
Remember, embedded in impulsivity is a positive, which is creativity. You can't be creative if you're not a little bit disinhibited, if you're not a little bit impulsive.
So they're always thinking 2 steps ahead, or some other way of doing it, or some new innovation.
This looks like the X to me.
Risk-taking goes in all forms, not just jumping off a roof. It's risk-taking in the sense of pushing your boundaries out in life.
We're running late, we have to get in the car, and then I turn around and he stopped in the office to burn a DVD of something or a CD or whatever, and you're going, why now?
ADHD is surely not a choice. You don't have the choice to have ADHD or not.
That's not intentional. That's not somebody who's thinking, well, I'm really gonna make her angry by being late. This is somebody who's having a real struggle getting from A to B.
You know, a lot of people think that ADD is some sort of death sentence, while other people think it's nothing at all. It's completely made up, not an issue. Yeah.
Your behavior isn't that much different from mine, and if I control my behavior, why can't you control your behavior? As opposed to, for example, diabetes, an example I compare it to a lot, where clearly my pancreas is broken, that's why I take insulin shots, and your pancreas works fine, you don't have to. So it's sort of a clear biological difference.
Is it true that adult ADD is hard to spot?
There is also a group of adults who have never been diagnosed, who suddenly have that aha experience.
I remember sitting around a table and they were discussing the problems that he was having because he was all over the place. He was getting frustrated and he had all kinds of little problems with his academics and things like that, just keeping his mind on things. And somebody popped up and said, has anybody tested him for attention deficit? And I went, what's that? You know, and then they described it to me and I went, isn't that normal?
They've wondered why they had to read for 4 hours to get a half an hour of reading comprehension, or why they couldn't rest, or their difficulties with relationships.
When my doctor asked me the question, when did you last feel well? And you say, I've never felt well, that I've never really felt happy, that I've compared myself to other people and I've never really felt the same.
I always felt bad about myself, like, you know, I wasn't doing enough, or it wasn't good enough, or why couldn't I do it better, or like the other kids did.
Everyone's better than me.
Oh, definitely, definitely, yeah.
How do you feel? But yet, I'm an attorney, I'm a doctor, I'm a teacher.
Well, I'm a reasonably successful adult. I must be able to return a phone call on my own. I don't need that reminder all the time. But now it's 10 after 3 and I missed the phone call.
How could I have got this far, having this particular difficulty? Well, the fact that I'm on my 3rd wife, the fact that I drink to excess, that I'm bankrupt, the fact that I live in misery and pain all the time.
I was the guy who was failing at everything, getting low marks, and you know, you couldn't play on sports because I didn't have any foundation how to play sports or what that was.
Well, sure, lots of people live like me, don't they? No, they don't. This is different. You're different.
Come see the kids I work with who know the right thing to do and just struggle to do it. And come see the kids I work with who fail at being kids. See the kids who couldn't keep their hands to themselves and who, when they go to the grocery store, the other kids say, that's the kid who got in trouble. It's no fun and nobody would want this. Nobody in their right mind would want this if they didn't have to have it.
In those individuals, integrating this new intervention and new understanding into their self-concept means rewriting their whole life history. And that's a very large task, and it's an ongoing task, which when you start in middle age is difficult.
The single most consistent predictor of future of adult success among children is self-esteem. It's not intelligence. It's not any particular type of neurology. It is self-esteem.
As a child, I was or had been suspended or expelled.
I'd say quite a bit.
Yeah?
Do people with ADD have lower self-esteem?
For sure, it increases the risk of having a low self-esteem.
I lack confidence with people I do not know.
You circled it already.
I did.
Why would it affect self-esteem?
If you're sort of unruly or hyperactive and you get, abused or beaten, or you're told that you're stupid or lazy or you can't do it, or why don't you just pay attention more, when you really can't pay attention, then you lose contact with friends, you become more isolated.
I spent a lot of time alone from about 6 to 12 or 13 before high school. I'd usually be alone. That's where the Elvis stuff came in, where I'd just go and put an album on in my room and stay in the room.
That was your escape.
Exactly. You failed, you passed, you failed, and then they would reach me at the back of the class and say, you failed, and you failed because you didn't pay attention. You failed because you didn't settle down. I told you to settle down and you didn't do it. It's your fault, you failed. Did everybody hear that? Patrick failed.
When you live a life of people yelling at you all day, by the time you get to adolescence and into adulthood, it may look like somebody who has anxiety and depression.
I always think it will turn out well.
False. This whole test is going to blow up in my face.
You think so?
Oh, absolutely.
When you have people who have difficulties of self-esteem, loss of potential, anxiety, depression, one of the first things you got to say is, when did this start? And let's go back to your childhood.
By far, the most common reaction when someone gets this diagnosis is relief, then a feeling of anger. Why didn't someone tell me sooner? A feeling of sadness, all these opportunities I've missed.
Can overwhelm you thinking, well, I thought I'd be here by now. I thought this would happen by now, or this is where I wanted to be, but yet I'm over here.
And it's not a good idea to reflect back and see, what if? What if I knew when I was a kid?
And I think that happened a few years ago to me particularly. I started to get overwhelmed, and when I look back at it now, I realize that a lot of it was probably more ADD-driven than depression-driven or anxiety-driven.
When you drive, you look forward. You have that mirror there, okay? You have to look there sometimes to be sure, but you really have to look forward.
Janice would often, grab hold of me and take stock saying, no, look where you are.
You let out the anger, you let out the sadness, and then you jump on this wave of enthusiasm and excitement.
Actually, I have exactly what I've always dreamed of, right down to the T of the description of the house we live in. And the fact that your son in his 20s would still hug you every morning.
Yes, yeah.
That you were great friends with,
Yep.
with your spouse, that you loved your work and your work enjoyed you.
And what's the treatment for low self-esteem? Success. So when you treat ADHD, you have to aim for success.
I have clients who are the best athletes in the world, the most successful entrepreneurs in the world.
That's right. Some people with ADD are leading very good lives. So, I have the diagnosis. What now? What tips do you give patients? What do I do? How can I beat my ADD?
I really think it's important to embrace a strength-based approach that does not in any way deny there is a downside, but that emphasizes the positive as a way of developing the positive.
We spend a lot of effort making sure that people are educated. This is by far the most important intervention.
So you need to know what you're dealing with.
Once you're educated, this is an individual who can start making decisions.
Know what you do well and do as much of it as you can, and know what you don't do well and figure out a way to hire it out or get somebody else to do it.
This is a disorder in which if you change the environment to be ADHD friendly, impairment can drop drastically.
I often have my patients dream of the ideal day. If I could wake up at the ideal time, if I could have the right breakfast, if I could do the right things, and then go to sleep looking back at the day and going, wow, that was a great day. And so in many ways, first identifying the lifestyle that will make you happy, and then saying, what do I need to do to get there?
When I was in grade 10, my English teacher took me and another fellow to see Second City. And I knew that these were adults on stage having an incredible time, and the infectious laughter that it created in the room, I was possessed from that moment on that this is what I was going to do. So I snuck in one Saturday afternoon, and by the end of the audition process that afternoon, I was hired to be in the touring company. So I had to phone Janice and say, I'm an actor at Second City, and we're getting married in a month. Are you okay with that? She went, yeah, that's what you should be doing.
A lot of people become entrepreneurs who have ADHD. They start small businesses.
About 15% of the patients that I treat work in the film television industry. They should have that Hollywood sign down and make it ADHD City.
I mean, even for me being a psychologist in a private practice, it's great because I can come in when I see my patients, I can leave, I can teach, I do neuropsychological testing.
15% of my patients work in sales, stockbrokers, real estate agents.
People with ADD focus in a crisis. They're calm, cool, and collected in a crisis.
Paramedics, firefighters, emergency room physicians.
A brain surgeon, an airline pilot, don't worry, they pay attention when they're flying. They just have trouble with the paperwork after they've landed. Marry the right person and find the right job. And adults with ADD often make the same mistake in both domains. They marry and work for a caricature of a bad fifth grade school teacher. They marry and work for someone who is controlling, demeaning, picking, and someone who doesn't really like them all that much because they got the idea around about fifth grade that that's what they needed, that they were a hopeless case. So they had to be ridden herd on, they had to be controlled, they had to be demeaned and put down and so on and so forth. So don't do that.
Everything's a negotiation. Yeah. Everything's a negotiation. There's not one person in the relationship that really says this is the way it is and that's the way it has to be and that's the be-all, end-all.
Yes, dear.
It just doesn't work that way.
Sometimes people have to walk a little further away from the cliff if they're under a lot of stress or risk. Having a supportive system around you makes a big difference.
I don't get as excitable as he is. He'll go from 0 to 60 immediately. And I just stay calm because I know that the wallet is going to be found. I know that the girls at MasterCard are going to say, hey, Patrick, how's it going? Okay, we're canceling the cards again, no problem.
Should I marry someone who's not ADD?
Marry someone who loves you. Marry someone who loves your upside and is willing to help you with your downside.
Why did she stay with you?
I'm funny. I won't say I'm a great lover, but I'm funny. Because
you're funny in love.
Maybe. I'll take that.
I love his sense of humor. I love his spontaneity. I love the fact that he's never boring. I love the fact that he's kind and generous, and he's really thoughtful, and he keeps me laughing all the time. And
I can't disagree with her.
Well, you have to have a very good sense of humor if you want to cope with your ADHD. And those who love you really have to have a good sense of humor also.
Yes. As soon as it's over, let it go and bring as much humor into it as possible. Laugh about it as much as you possibly can.
Many people with ADD, get to be super achievers, which is not bad unless it's at your expense, unless you're not taking care of your basic self-care.
For short distances, you go very fast. But you're not taking a Ferrari on a long distance round Canada tour. They have great value, they have great potential, but they're high maintenance. Clear strategies are better sleep, better food.
Does exercise help with the symptoms?
Yes.
How about cod liver oil?
Exercise, omega-3s.
Anything that makes blood go to your brain and nurtures your brain is going to make your brain work better.
Any form of relaxation, the ability to be more aware of your body and its relationship to the environment, if you can do that, can be quite helpful.
What if I can't sit still long enough to meditate?
All you need to do is get out and walk, and your focus, instead of being a mantra or a breath or something like that, is the feeling of your feet on the floor.
We get asked about hypnosis. Hypnosis has proven value for some other conditions, but not for ADHD. We get asked about biofeedback, but it's not there for ADHD treatment.
I think when our son came along and he started recognizing he had to have a schedule for children, that the schedule actually fit me better than it did the child.
Sure.
Post-its, but a big caution with Post-its is you don't want to have too many reminders because pretty soon you have an entire wall full of Post-its and you stop seeing it.
We know good habits, when they're there, makes the brain work like it's on autopilot.
Would a cluttered house or office stimulate the brain?
If you live in a world of clutter, your brain is cluttered. Simplicity is very important.
And then there are what you might call paid partners. Okay, get your mind out of the gutter. I'm talking about life coaches.
I think probably the most effective treatment for ADHD that I've seen, both in kids and adults, is coaching.
I'm not terribly interested in making you normal. I'm not terribly interested in making you the middle. I'm interested in maximizing your potential and giving you knowledge. If you know where the edge of the cliff is, you've got to make a decision. How can I stay here and be functional?
What strategies can I use?
Experiment and find out the tricks that make a difference. If I hang my keys up every day over here, I don't lose them. If I have 2 sets of books, I can always get my homework done. If I have an organizer that rings an alarm every time I need to move to the next activity, I actually get there.
What structures or practices work best?
You have a planner and be religious about it, almost compulsive about checking that planner.
The family calendar was one of the introductions by yourself. It said, here's a calendar. When you have something, write it in here. And it took a little while to get used to the calendar was the Bible in the house of write it down, write it down, write it down.
Now I actually have a BlackBerry, which is much more helpful because I will forget to do silly, mundane things like pick up my dry cleaning.
Isn't all this advice just common sense?
Yes.
Shouldn't everyone be doing this?
Oh, yes.
Get up off the couch. Don't look for the quick fix, the quick slogan, the, okay, I'll do that tomorrow. Read the book. Do the homework. The stakes are high. We're talking about your child's health and your health in the case of adults.
Patrick would make a doctor's appointment, and then he'd come home all upset and say, I got to the doctor, and they had no record of my appointment. I couldn't believe it, and I told them my time, I don't have time to come back and do this again. I'm not gonna be in town, and blah, 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 and insisted. And so the eye doctor took him in and said, I'm really sorry, Mr. McKenna, and did the appointment and everything else. Wrong doctor, wrong day, wrong doctor. Not even the doctor he made the appointment with. He just happened to. Now, that in itself is pretty funny.
But see, the charm got me the appointment. Don't underestimate the charm.
That's right, that's right. But he didn't do that just once. He's done it 3 times. He's done it with dentists, eye doctors, and doctors.
I'm as bad as Elvis. I'll go anywhere, man.
But every time, they see him. He's not even their patient, and they see him.
Okay, we did that one. Did it, got him. We did them all. Well, I guess we've answered all your questions about ADD. You know, it's been a personal journey for me. Mother Superior! Oh boy. Oh. This is all about Ritalin and drugs, which is a whole other special, really. You know, it's probably like 5 other specials. Well, let's just say this. When it comes to medication, there's so much fear out there.
What's unfortunate about the medications that we use to treat ADD is people don't realize how safe they are. It's a real failure of public education.
You walk into my office and the first thing you say to me is, don't even talk to me about the medications. You will hurt your kid. You're working on ignorance.
The fact is, stimulant medication has been in use to treat what we now call ADD since 1937. Nothing lasts that long in the realm of pharmacology unless it is both safe and effective.
So 80% of kids, through many studies, not just the ones that we've done here, get a great treatment response, meaning that the benefits way outweigh the disadvantages.
Aspirin would be more dangerous than Ritalin.
Can you say that again?
Stimulant medication, when used properly, is safer than aspirin. Every year, aspirin kills tens of thousands of people due to GI bleeds and strokes. Hundreds of people commit suicide with aspirin. None of that happens with stimulants.
So if you ask me the question, so will this kid be 20 years from now after he takes the medication, if he has to take it for 20 years? I can tell you. I actually have data looking at the long-term treatment of this individual, and it's okay. There's nothing that's going to happen that's going to be of risk to this person.
And my experience is it opened up a whole new world. It was like a spiritual wake-up call for me to take medication.
So I remember an experience when I was a young physician of giving a mother who had had many children her first tablet of Ritalin for her 9-year-old son. And she called me when she got home in the taxi. She'd given him the pill right away and said, that was the child I always knew was there. But it was the first time I got him still enough that I could actually give him a hug, and the first time that we could actually talk with each other. So that experience where you live for the first time symptom-free can be dramatic.
Do the medications affect your creativity? No, they don't. They affect your ability to plan, though.
And it also can be enlightening because it helps the patient to distinguish who they are from the symptoms that they carry.
20% of kids don't get a great response, meaning either they get no response or the negatives outweigh the positives.
They feel too quiet, or they feel zombied, or they feel listless, or a child will say to me, it takes the sparkle out of me.
If that happens, it's clear that that's the wrong dose of the wrong medicine.
The side effects are immediately reversible by discontinuing the medication.
They're not the cure. But by gosh, sometimes, you know, the medications, when they work, they make the kid's life successful and they stop the suffering.
If you were having difficulty seeing the blackboard in school, you might be able to sit in the front row of the classroom and squint and not wear glasses. You probably wouldn't see the blackboard very well, and you'd probably come home with a headache at the end of the day, and it wouldn't be very effective. Or you might choose to wear glasses. For ADHD, getting treatment is like wearing those glasses. It will help relieve the symptoms and really improve functionality.
Is it medication something you still use? Or?
Yes, every day.
Yeah, every day?
Yes.
And if you have children, eventually, would you mind them going on medication at all for
No,
them?
definitely. I think it would help them out.
Yeah.
I feel like I was half dead before I went on the medication. And as I think I told you, I'm no longer on medication. But my brain is awake. I've used other methods to do that.
You'll learn the skills you need with the medication's help. That when you don't take the medications, those skills will still be there.
From the minute I meet a kid, I'm thinking about that ultimate goal, that you're going to be an independent, functioning adult someday. And whatever structures and supports I build in, I need to be prepared to ultimately remove them. Kind of like training wheels. You put training wheels on with the notion that eventually you're going to take them off. Now, some people, it's true, need training wheels forever. There's some people who can't walk. And that's okay. We just need to identify those.
I don't think I could have accessed the other methods that I use now without medication.
I've considered medication in the past, but not knowing what the side effects were and not having the information. I live by a lot of the myths that were told to me by people who had no idea either, but not knowing that. And I think a lot of times I don't know if that's an ADD or me moment where I often give authority to other people. When I ask something, if they tell me, I go, oh, I heard this. And now that we've done all these interviews with people, you run into more people who said, well, I heard this, and you hear the myths more than you hear the fact. So this journey's been wonderful for me to confirm that I have no fears whatsoever of going on medication. I'm looking forward to getting on the medication just to see what the other side of the coin is like. Whether I stay on it, that may be what the future will tell me. But really, now that the facts are laid out, you know, it's so obvious.
The real side effects people ought to be worried about are the side effects of not getting proper treatment. Years of underachievement, years of frustration, years of failure, years of into adulthood of lost jobs and failed relationships. Those are pretty severe side effects. So the good news is these medications used properly are safe and effective. The bad news is most people don't know that, and so they fear them.
So we have learned that ADHD is a very real brain-based disorder that is responsive to treatment. is chronic, impairing, and common, and most important, treatable. So this is a tremendous public health opportunity because we have a lot of people in our society who could be receiving treatment, who are not receiving treatment, and if they were, their quality of life and the quality of life of those around them would be much improved.
Okay. I do not think it's smart to help weak people who cannot help themselves.
Oh, that's false.
Yeah, it's false. It wasn't even worth asking.
When we started out on this journey, I thought my ADD was a gift, even the key to my success. But the more I learned, the more I realized I was lucky. And I saw how much it had cost me to get where I am, and what it had cost my family in unnecessary suffering. So now if you ask me, can you really love having ADD? I would say no. But you can't have ADD and love life.
Ta-da! I just accept his behavior as that's who he is.
Girlfriends will think, well, you know, how do you lay down with a migraine and wake up and the house is painted a different color, or the dining room's been redecorated, or he's taken out a wall and put in French doors. You went shopping for groceries and you came back and there's a wall gone. Those things in life, really, they're not that big of a deal. So what? The dining room's purple. So what? You know, we don't have the door there anymore. Those aren't the big things in life, you know?
As long as we can get out of the house.
Yeah.
Why sweat the small stuff? So we took a wall out.